We are going to go ahead and get started because we have a full slate of questions. We've had people, hi there, Larity. We've had people post all kinds of questions in the pre-event chat. So I've got those listed. And thank you all for your questions. Thank you for coming. Keep hitting that heart button and let us know how you're liking it. So let's kick it off. You ready, Julie?
Absolutely.
Okay, Senadora Julie Gonzales is a two-term Colorado state senator from District 34, Northwest and downtown Denver. She is currently the Senate Majority Whip and chair of the Judiciary Committee. In December 2025, she launched a Democratic primary challenge against incumbent U.S. Senator John Hickenlooper. She earned the top spot on the upcoming primary ballot during the assembly process, while her Democratic opponent qualified by petition. The primary is June 30th. Yesterday, the Colorado AFL-CIO endorsed Julie Gonzales, an endorsement they gave to Hickenlooper in 2020. Both Colorado and National Indivisible have endorsed Julie Gonzales for U.S. Senate. If elected, Julie will be the first woman and first Latina U.S. Senator from Colorado. She is running a people-powered campaign with no corporate PACs. Here are a few things about Julie our audience will want to know. She was born on the San Carlos Apache Reservation in Arizona, but her family roots in Colorado go back generations before Colorado was even a state. She's the sixth of 7 children. Her mother, who was widowed at 20 with 2 kids, overcame hardship to become an elementary school teacher. Her father was a rancher. Julie graduated with a bachelor's degree from Yale University, then came back home to Colorado after college to spend 20 years organizing tenants, teachers, immigrants, and workers before she was elected to the state Senate. Julie co-founded the Colorado Latino Forum in 2009. She lives in Jefferson Park with her husband, Ben, and her 2 Shih Tzus, Beans and Panda. She's the author of SB 20, Colorado Death Penalty Repeal. She sponsored legislation codifying abortion across Colorado after Dobbs. She's the prime sponsor of Colorado's Just Cause for Eviction law, took on corporate rent fixing algorithms at the state level. She's the author of SB 25276, the Immigrant Protection Law, co-sponsor of SB 5 of 2026, allowing individuals, get this, to sue federal immigration agents in state civil court. She has been key to passing landmark legislation on reproductive freedom, voting rights, housing, the death penalty, prescription drug costs, and more. She's co-chair of the Colorado Democratic Latino Caucus, parliamentarian of the Board of Latino Legislative Leaders. Please welcome Senadora Julie Gonzales. Julie, I first got acquainted with you and your campaign for U.S. Senate through ICANN, the Colorado Indivisible Leadership. And then right after we met at a community event. And after talking with you, I knew that I wanted to feature you on the show. The lessons from your heritage and your family just ring through your language and your actions, your lift as we climb inheritance, your path from organizing to legislating. Your website rings with the same ideas we talked about when we first met, raised by and fighting for working people, grounded in work guided by justice. Are these the kinds of values that have led you to expand on your work here in Colorado to seek a seat in the U.S. Senate?
Absolutely. And Sandi, I just have to start by saying thank you for all that you do to create space and for these conversations to occur. My mom taught me in 2nd grade, and, you know, being a part of her classroom and seeing how much she worked to make sure that every kid in her class was successful, that mattered, right? And that showed me what mentorship, what leadership looked like, seeing my dad, work alongside the San Carlos Apache tribe. And then when I was 10, my dad got a different job managing a different ranch, this time on the border of South Texas. Seeing him navigate those very, very complicated, very fraught political spaces mattered, right? And seeing how now when we feel like the world is on fire, it's not just how you talk, it's how you show up to do the work, because it matters. And so thank you so much for the opportunity to chat with you today. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
How you talk, though, is how you do the work. And that's what drew me to you. I mean, the minute I met you, I just knew this would be a great conversation. So I have a few questions to ask you. I'm just going to jump right into the US Senate potential here. In a scenario when the Democrats gain the majority back in both the House and the Senate, so if that happened, what would be your top 3 legislative priorities?
Okay, let's jump into it, because every single day that Donald Trump continues on his ridiculous war of choice that nobody asked for, and that is clear that he has no plan to get out of, demonstrates why Democrats need to do 2 things. One, we need to flip red seats blue and build a governing majority. But then 2, we've also got to look at the caliber of leaders that we send to DC to fight from blue states like Colorado. And so I am so looking forward to building those majorities, both in the U.S. Senate and in the House of Representatives. And what I would work on first and foremost, co-sign the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, right? Because we have to do the work to protect democracy. 2, I'd sign on to the PRO Act to make it easier to organize and join a union free from fear and intimidation. And then 3, here's the work that I'd begin. We got to advance Medicare for all and stop allowing the richest country in the history of the world to spend $1 billion a day on a war and then turn around and tell its people that, sorry, we don't have enough money in the budget to provide health care for every American. It makes no sense. And so we ought to be able to advance those policies once Democrats build those governing majorities.
What a great answer. And of course, it's about the people. I mean, the people create the wealth. There is no wealth if the people don't go to work and create the products, farm the fields, mine the mines, do all the work that the people do, not the fat cats. So all of your interests there are in the people's orders. So that is wonderful. So I highlighted the committees you're on in the Colorado Senate. What committees would you like to serve on in the U.S. Senate?
When I first joined the state Senate, I told my leadership at the time that I would do whatever it took, put me on whatever committee, but if I could have the honor and privilege to serve on the Judiciary Committee, I would do whatever work was also asked of me. At one point, I was on 6 different committees. I am no stranger to hard work. And so to me, to serve on the Judiciary Committee in the U.S. Senate would be just the highest honor. Look, let me say, though, a lot of people often ask, oh, okay, so I understand you went to Yale for your undergrad, but where did you go to law school? I am not an attorney. I organized for years and then burned out at one point, I'll be honest, and thought maybe I'll go to law school. And then I realized, actually, I couldn't afford law school because I had so much debt already, given my undergraduate student loans. And so I instead became a paralegal and an office manager at an immigration and criminal defense law firm. And it's kind of funny now, looking back, right? I'm not an attorney, but I chair the Judiciary Committee in the State Senate of Colorado. And I've been so proud to work alongside attorneys and also just the everyday people who are impacted by the decisions that we make at the Capitol that impact our state courts, right? And so to me, being able to serve on the Judiciary Committee would be a dream, and I'd do whatever it took to try to make that happen.
Again, I'm just hearing your voice speaking for the people, always for the people. I love that about you, Julie. Listen, I want to make a quick announcement. Our Democracy Collective team members will be placing links and things that you can do in the chat. And these will also be in the show notes for the video once it's rendered and published on Substack. So check them out. And we're looking at your comments. We're seeing your questions. I have a few for Julie, and then we're going to try to get to one that somebody just posted. Assuming Democrats do gain the gavels, what kinds of hearings would be your highest priorities, and what questions would you like to ask? Like, what administration witnesses would you like to see hauled in front of the committees?
Short answer, all of them. Longer answer.
Don't hold back, Julie. Tell us how you feel.
Let's go. No, genuinely, that is our role. And one of my great frustrations with the way that this administration is operating in this moment is they are acting with impunity, and they seem to have forgotten that that the people are watching, and that we are not okay with the impunity that they are unleashing upon the American people. And so let me just say, not only would I like to ensure that we are providing oversight to the different cabinet agencies and the different departments of the federal government, but so too would I be thrilled with the opportunity to grill some of these corporate bad actors who think that they can go and make a donation to President Trump's private ballroom and somehow skirt accountability in that form or fashion. No, if they are causing harm to the American people, we ought to do the work to hold those bad actors to account. And whether that's in committee or whether that's via legislation, that is what people elect members of Congress to go and do. And one of my great frustrations is the fact that in this moment, it appears that Chuck Schumer is more interested in effectively managing our descent into fascism instead of standing up and leading the charge against it. And so I'm looking forward to not only Democrats being in charge, but for the Senate Democratic Caucus to bring in a new generation of leadership.
Wow, you already answered my next question. I was going to ask you about that. But listen, a member of our audience has asked for you to tell us your stance on Gaza. That's a big question.
Absolutely. Well, first and foremost, let me just say that the genocide needs to stop, full stop. And second, the fact that our tax dollars have been utilized in the commission of that genocide, I think is it is unconscionable. And I have to say, I am so proud that Senator Sanders has taken such a bold stance to force these on the record votes about an arms embargo. And just this week, we've seen that he's finally started to build a majority of Democratic votes who are taking Democratic U.S. senators who are voting to stop sending bulldozers, to stop sending certain types of bombs to Israel. And that, to me, is the caliber of leadership that is required in this moment. What I also believe to be true, and I do want to say this, is that we've also seen, right, a complication in the way that people feel like they can even have these conversations. And, certainly, Sandy, just as well as I do that the firebombing attack that took place this past summer in Boulder, that, made people just afraid to even exist as folks who are visibly Jewish, right? We've also heard from folks in the Muslim community, right? And folks who are pro-Palestine, right? That they certainly feel scrutinized and under attack. My sense is that we have to be able to have difficult conversations and treat each other with dignity and respect, even when we disagree.
That's a great way to segue into Rhonda Dern's question in the chat. Will you censor the 11 legislators who went against the Democratic platform values by voting against rights for farm workers in Colorado?
Oh, thank you, Rhonda, for asking the question. I saw another question that came up in the chat around that bill that just passed in the Senate earlier today, actually. And let me just take a little bit of time to give a bit of context to your viewers. So while I'm also running for the U.S. Senate, I'm still in the state legislature right now, and just actually came off the Senate floor a few minutes ago. And one of the bills that has taken up a great amount of discussion in both the Senate and the House is Senate Bill 121, a bill that would seek to change how farm workers, how many hours farm workers have to work before they can access overtime. And here's at the end of the day, what I believe. I was a no on the bill. I think that everyone, regardless of what type of work you do, or your immigration status, or where you were born, or how much money you got in your bank account, should be paid a fair and decent living wage. And the idea that farm workers should have to work 56 hours before they access overtime, whereas every other worker in the state works 40, and then on 40 hours and minute one, they then access overtime wages. That to me just seems unfair and not right. And so, look, every single legislator who voted in support of that bill will have to answer to their constituents, and I really am proud to see the conversation that this bill generated. I think at first a lot of us thought, well, will Colorado voters be tracking this, especially here in the metro area? There aren't a lot of farm workers here in the metro area, but to see that this has generated incredible interest and frustration from Democrats, to me, is an affirmation of the fact that you all are paying attention, you all are engaged, and I'm so grateful for it.
I think the pandemic helped us to care more about farm workers, and now ICE's work trying to round up laborers and farm workers has brought attention to them too. And Colorado does have micro growers, even in the Denver area, but we have farmers all around the state. So they're important
Absolutely.
here to the state's economy. Also, if we want to eat, we got to have farmers. We got to treat them well. They got to be
Absolutely.
strong so they can feed the nation. So I want to
before we go on, I do just want to
Yeah.
say the one thing about that debate, because it was an incredibly look, I can't speak to the House because the House, they debated Senate Bill 121 on the House floor longer than the Senate debated the entire budget. Let me just give you a sense of comparison there. But in the Senate, the debate was incredibly emotional. And you had Republicans who were speaking about, look, we are a family farm and we are trying to hang on by our fingernails. And the only thing where we can try to cut costs to make ends meet is in terms of labor. And it's like, at the end of that debate, I went to the floor and I said, look, I respect where you all are coming from in terms of you all as family farmers trying to hold on to, oftentimes what is a generational livelihood. But let us be clear, trying to target labor instead of holding the corporations that are transforming the agricultural industry and engaging in huge consolidation. That's what we ought to be fighting against. So please join me in that fight, because that's a place where we can really band together and think about, instead of pitting farmers and farm workers against one another, think about if we all banded together to hold those corporations to account. That's where we could really absolutely change the entire dynamic here in Colorado. Now, I say that having grown up on ranches myself, having witnessed the consolidation within the meat packing industry altogether. And I was really surprised that there were a bunch of Republicans who were like, "You're not wrong." And so, look, broken watches can be right twice a day, friends.
That was so passionate, Julie. This is what I love about you. Listen, we do have a question in the chat about DHS, but we're going to get to that after we talk about something that's pretty dear to Coloradans too: public lands, forests, water, and wildlife. So let's start out with this. Both Bennett and Hickenlooper voted to confirm Doug Berman as Secretary of the Interior. Burgum is now moving the U.S. Forest Service to Utah. He's shuttering research sites, including those doing wildfire prevention research. Colorado has 11 national forests in its borders, and they're the backbone of outdoor recreation, watershed, wildlife habitat, and both our state and rural community economies. What can a senator from Colorado do to push back against this kind of federal restructuring of public lands?
Look, I first and foremost, it blows my mind that Senator Hickenlooper went and voted to confirm Doug Burgum for that cabinet position. And Senator Hickenlooper is second only to Fetterman in terms of having voted for not one, not two, but 10 different Trump cabinet nominees in the second Trump administration. It makes no sense.
Bennett is 8, so
that is correct.
Yeah,
that is correct. And when Hickenlooper was asked about, well, why did you vote for all of those nominees? He said, well, they were going to pass anyway, and I wanted them to return my phone call. Sorry, the way that I show up to this work in the state capitol and the way that I will show up in the U.S. Senate is I say, look, my daddy taught me that if you disagree with someone, you ought to be able to look them in the whites of their eyes and say, I disagree, but my door is always open for further conversation. And so that's the way that I would have shown up in those confirmation hearings, is to say, sir, all due respect, I'm a no, but when it comes to fighting for Colorado and fighting for our public lands, my door will always be open. And that's what I would do right now. Look, I have a dear friend who works for the Forest Service now, and she was telling me just how devastated their department has been by the Doge cuts, right? And she's hanging on. She got shifted from full-time to part-time. And they're just waiting every month to see, okay, is the next shoe going to drop now? Am I still going to have a job, right? She's got 3 kids, and her husband did actually get doged, and they are afraid for what the rollbacks and the support of our public lands and for the agencies that are meant to protect them will be, right? And we all know, right, that these actions can't just easily be undone and then restored, right? If we lose access to our public lands, that will take generations to recover. And so we've got work to do.
We do. And beyond that, we talked about the forests being the watersheds. The Colorado River is in crisis. Lake Powell hydropower could go offline by later this year. The interstate drought agreements have all expired. What does a U.S. Senator from Colorado have the power to do here that a governor or an attorney general can't do?
Absolutely. Look, first and foremost, I know that I am grateful that it is snowing because heavens knows that we need the water. And when we have seen the warmest winter in my lifetime taking place right now, it is ringing alarm bells across the state in terms of what this is going to mean for our people and for our planet, you know. And so I had a conversation a couple of weeks back with a superintendent along the I-70 corridor, right? And he was talking about how the cost of living in some of the ski towns is so high that he has several teachers who then work as river raft instructors in order to then cobble together enough money to make ends meet and you know, live year round in ski country. And with the water, with the snowpack being as low as it is, he was just telling me, I don't know how some of my teachers are going to make it through the summer. That is the level of existential fear that we have. Now, your question is, what can we be doing as in the U.S. Senate, right? And what we know in this moment is that the Colorado upper basin and lower basin need to get to consensus. And we need those leaders in those states to find that consensus before the federal government has to get involved. And under this administration, my fear is that if the feds get involved, it will not be to the benefit of all of us in the basin. And so I believe fundamentally that we have to listen to one another, and we have to all, upper and lower basin, acknowledge and recognize that the numbers and the levels that were put forward for who gets how much water when, those were all agreed upon prior to the full implications of the climate crisis were fully known, right? And so we're all going to have to conserve. We're all going to have to do our part. And I say that as someone who was born and grew up for a part of my life in Arizona, right? And the last thing I'll say here on this point is that we haven't done a good job as either the upper basin or the lower basin states of listening to the original stewards of our land and water, Native peoples, right? And the tribes have often been thought of as an afterthought if they've been taken into consideration at all. And I think that all of the states involved in the Colorado River negotiations would be well served to, on the front end, listen to the voices of Native people and the tribes in thinking about what the future of the Colorado River should be.
That's a wonderful part of that we often don't hear about. Some tribes have miles and miles of riverfront and don't have water rights. I mean, they've been taken from them by corporate industry, corporate farming, corporate ranching. We've had several questions in the chat about wildlife. I just want to mention, you touched on affordability in the housing in the mountains. We're going to get to affordability in a minute. And I fear we're going to run out of time for all these good questions we want, but I do want to hit that one. But before then, will you in the Senate work to restore the full force of the Endangered Species Act? Lynx, wolverine, sage grouse, cutthroat trout, Mexican spotted owls all have Colorado population on the line, and now wolves. Jenny from our audience wants to know your stance on continuing the voter-approved Colorado wolf reintroduction project. I think this is a bundle of stuff that could be one question. Are you there for wildlife?
Yes, full stop. And just briefly, what I will say is that Trump is seeking to undermine the legal standing that led to the Environmental Protection Act, right? So that he can then privatize and corporatize our public lands. And I'm just here to say, not under my watch.
Ah, I love that answer. I'm going to take that as a big yes. Listen, I want to say again that our ODC team members are putting links in the chat of things you can do. One of them is register to vote and vote in the primary. Julie goes forward from the primary with your vote, with the votes of the people. So if you like Julie's stance on these things, register to vote, vote in the primary, and look at the other links of things that you can do. You can help her campaign. We've got her campaign's website URL there. You can do all sorts of things to help them on the ground. You can donate, you can host a coffee, you can do a lot of things. So we want to make sure you saw that. We're going to have to move on because we're running out of time. We could talk forever, but I'm thinking maybe we just need to have another conversation sometime soon so we can
I
cover
welcome
all of
that
it.
too.
I want to talk about affordable housing. It's really a big issue in Colorado. You touched on the ski areas, but it's also an issue anywhere you're close to work that you could get. So you were the prime sponsor of Just Cause for Eviction in Colorado and took on corporate rent fixing algorithms here. What's the federal piece that you'd push for that Colorado can't do alone?
Thank you for the question. And let me just say that I fight hard so that Coloradans can access safe and affordable housing because someone fought for me. The only reason I'm here before you today as a state senator is because someone fought for affordable housing in Denver before it was cool. I was lucky enough to purchase an affordable housing unit back in 2008. And right as the recession was, I guess, starting to take place back in 2008, and access to affordable housing fundamentally changed my life. Whereas my friends who I lived next to in apartments, they got gentrified, sometimes out of Denver, sometimes they had to drive until they could afford, right? I've had some friends leave the state. Instead, I was able to, because I had access to affordable housing, stay, live in a community, put down roots. And now I'm honored to represent this community that I love so dearly. And that's why I fight so hard for affordable housing for other folks like me. And I do want to say that not only is this a problem in Denver, not only is it a problem across the Front Range, even in small towns, even in rural communities, people can no longer afford to access housing across the state. And so here's the thing that I would say is the federal tie-in to this work, because I know that the local governments and certainly the state government is trying to do our part, right? Here's the federal tie-in. Let's use the existing housing and the existing HUD community development block grant program and use that to go and buy what is often the most expensive part of any affordable housing deal, and that is the land. Purchase the land, and then go ahead and from there work state and local governments and philanthropy and partners like Habitat for Humanity or any host of organizations to build the housing that we know Coloradans are desperate for.
Yeah, and I think another piece of that is let's talk about youth. I do this with all of my guests, by the way, because I am the executive director of a nonprofit called Our Democracy Collective, and we are mentoring young people. We're teaching young people the skills that you need to succeed in media, content, and in campaigns and so on. One of the things I hear from these young people all the time is it's hard to find jobs. AI is taking over jobs. It's hard to live in Colorado because it's so expensive. Some of them have had to leave the state. Some of them have had to move way out in the boonies where they have to drive so far every day and can't, have an 8-hour day anymore because there's so much driving involved. What have we got for young people in Colorado that the federal government can help with?
I mean, that is what is so frustrating about this political moment, right? Is that I think we're all living paycheck to paycheck, working harder than ever, right? When you have two jobs and a side hustle in order to make ends meet and afford housing and healthcare, or housing and childcare, when young people are desperate to enter the workforce, and there is not enough, there aren't enough jobs out there to be able to cobble together a decent living, when the cost of everything seems to be going up except the your hourly wage. That to me demonstrates that Donald Trump is fundamentally harming our economy and economic opportunity for young people. And so that to me, who better to speak to those issues than someone who knows what it is to live paycheck to paycheck, someone who right now lives in affordable housing, right? And and what I would say is that first and foremost, what inspires me are folks like the baristas at Starbucks Workers United, who are saying, you know what, I'm not going to take it anymore, and who are defying extraordinary odds to go and organize unions, right? So I haven't, I haven't crossed that picket line. I encourage all of the listeners here to honor the Starbucks Workers United picket line that they have. Reach out to Starbucks and let them know that they ought to go and recognize the union and recognize those workers' demands. But it's not only in Starbucks, right? We're seeing workers organize in industries across the country, whether that's Amazon workers, whether those are local taxi drivers, whether those are library workers. I just came from a rally yesterday with CWA, Communications Workers of America, Local 7799, right, who were organizing graduate teachers and library workers, right? REI workers are now organizing. That to me is a demonstration, right? Ain't nobody coming to save us but us. And so my sense, any elected official and any candidate for office ought to be full force in support of workers' rights to organize in order to collectively bargain and win fair wages and better workplaces and decency on the job.
We need legislation too about these big corporate mergers, but I don't want to get into that because I noticed you jumped right into the chat and answered a question about independents voting in the primary. And I think that's so important that we ought to segue right now and let you talk about that.
Absolutely. So let me just say, right, that Ellen, you are right. Independents do make up the majority of the electorate in the state of Colorado in this moment, right? And so the way that it'll work is that independents will receive a ballot for the Democratic primary and for the Republican primary. Now, independents will have to choose which ballot do you want to vote in, and you can only return one ballot, right? And so, but you can, should you make the decision to vote that Democratic primary ballot, you will have that opportunity to do so. Now, if you are registered as a Democrat, you'll get the Democratic primary ballot. If you're registered as a Green Party member, you will get the Green Party candidate, right? But if you are an unaffiliated voter, you will get both the Democratic and the Republican primary ballots, and that'll be your decision to turn it in. Those ballots will start getting mailed out the first week of June and will be due on 7 p.m. on June the 30th.
That's a great answer. Thank you. We want everyone to register to vote and vote. Vote in the primary. That will be how Julie advances to the November election, is with your vote. So I'm going to move on to ICE. That's come up about 7 times in the chat. In 2025, SB 276 was your bill, landmark legislation that strengthened Colorado's commitment to civil liberties, public safety, and the fundamental rights of all Coloradans, regardless of immigration status. A year later, and we're reading about this now in the media, Advance Colorado, the secretive big money, black money PAC group, is on the November ballot trying to repeal that. How do you defeat Initiative 95 while running a Senate campaign at the same time?
Look, what I know to be true is that the Republicans they have finally realized that they have no plan to win at the ballot box. And so they have no plan to actually run thoughtful, Colorado-minded candidates. And so instead, they're trying to legislate via ballot initiative, and that's sad. It's a shame to see, but what we know to be true is that Coloradans understand that when you're in a moment of crisis, you don't want anyone, if you're a victim of or a witness to crime, you don't want any moment of hesitation to be able to dial 911. But when you force local cops to act as de facto ICE agents, it makes us all less safe. And let me also, I've got to plug in my computer here so I don't lose you guys. There you go. We've also just got to be very, very clear that ICE is not making us any safer. Donald Trump likes to go and put out these conspiracy theories about conflating immigrants with crime. But look, immigrants are far more likely to be victims of crime, witnesses to crime. And when you force ICE to, when you force local cops to act as ICE agents, what you end up seeing is even more targeting of immigrants because the bad guys know that the immigrants are far less likely to call and report said crime. And so, look, we passed Senate Bill 276 in order to make it very clear, in case there was any questions, that cops should not be doing ICE's job. No local agency should be collaborating with ICE, honoring their subpoenas or warrants unless they go and get those warrants signed by an actual judge. And then, just like every other law enforcement agency, if they go and talk to a judge, we will honor that and proceed on because that's how things are done here in this country. And everyone should be able to access due process.
Okay, let's nail it down. When you're in the Senate, you said you support abolishing ICE and replacing it with a humane, accountable immigration enforcement system. That's a slogan. What's the legislation? What does the replacement actually look like, Julie?
Absolutely. Thank you for asking the question, because, and why do I say that we need to start with abolishing ICE? It's because the ICE at this point was formed in 2003, and the DREAM Act is older than ICE. The DREAM Act, which would grant a pathway to citizenship for young people who either go to college or serve in the military, that was first introduced the year that I graduated from high school in the summer of 2001. Let me be real clear. The DREAM Act is old enough to get a beer and still hasn't passed, right? and ICE is 2 years younger than the DREAM Act. Now, let me talk about why I believe we need to abolish ICE. We've known what the solutions have been. We've known for well over 20 years that we need to provide a pathway to citizenship, that we need to treat everybody with dignity and respect. But in the aftermath of 9/11, when ICE was created back in 2003, they conflated immigrants with potential terrorists. And so ICE has always been looking and conflating immigrants as potential criminals or potential terrorists and potential threats. And that, when that's your whole goal and vision and statement of purpose, it clouds your judgment, right? And so, and what we've also seen is that corporations are profiting handsomely off of the current system as it is, right? So whether you're talking about surveillance with corporations like Flock and Palantir, whether you're talking about detention with corporations like Geo or Core Civic. I don't know if you knew this, Sandy, but Aurora, Colorado, the Aurora Geo Detention Center was the pioneer of for-profit immigration detention way back in Aurora, way back in 1987, right? And so, and then when we look at the flights like Key Lime Air and the buses, right, that are profiting off of the removals themselves, we've got to strip the profit motive out of the immigration system, and let's instead put that money where it is needed, in immigration judges and immigration officials who can actually adjudicate these cases so that people aren't languishing for sometimes years, but sometimes decades, right? And let's also make sure that babies aren't being asked to represent themselves in immigration court, right? A friend of mine who's an immigration attorney was talking about their 6-year-old client was so excited to press the elevator buttons to go up to the floor. But then in the court hearing, the judge said, well, we'll give you another continuance so that next time you can go and hire legal counsel. That's the way that the system works right now. So in short, let's abolish ICE and let's replace it with a system that actually works, that has a path to citizenship, that protects due process, that ensures access to legal counsel, and that treats everyone with humanity and decency and respect.
Julie, I have so many more questions, both from the audience and here on our run of show, that I wanted to ask you. We're about to run out of time, though. I've got 2 more I want to ask. I want to ask you about the Department of Homeland Security. Should you get elected to the United States Senate, what can we do about that ballooned budget? It's a huge, massive budget that does feed these for-profit corporations and setting up multi-bed units that they can charge by the day to detain people, which gives a profit motive to detaining people, to arresting people, to housing people in federal detention centers instead of working out whatever issue caused them to be picked up in the first place. In the Senate, can you do something? Can you see a way to dismantle DHS, take it apart, and let the agencies that were there originally function, like FEMA and so on, in the ways that we need them?
Thank you so much for asking that question, because we don't have to just accept things the way that they are because they are the way that they are. In the aftermath of 9/11, the Bush administration said, well, what led to this? And as he was trying to understand where had these lapses in security taken place, their response was to then create this mega agency that was ill-defined from the start. And they and so you have, FEMA also, under the same agency as immigration enforcement. It doesn't make any sense.
No.
And so for that reason, I would support, right, breaking up the agency and making sure that there are good communication mechanisms in place, but you don't have to have that all under one overbroad and, I think, too big of a department. And instead, let's actually go and when your actual question, right, around why are so many people being detained, right? And it's because there are detention bed quotas that are written into statute right now, right? And so the GEO group, the corporate entity that runs the Aurora Detention Center, then says, okay, well, sorry, if I get paid if there's a body in a bed, and if I don't get paid if there's not a body in a bed, I'm going to go and try to make sure that there's 100% capacity every single day of the week, every single day of the year. And that then, when the actual determination that ICE should be using is, does this person present a threat to public safety? Is this person a flight risk? And when you look at the people who have put their lives, who are raising their families, who have put down roots here in Colorado, they do not present either safety risks or flight risks, and yet they're often ICE doesn't care about that, and GEO certainly doesn't care about that, because GEO's main interest is making sure that those beds stay full.
Yeah, and I mean, even the detention centers are being built for profit by these corporations. I know we're going to have another conversation. This 1 hour is not enough, but in closing, I want to say we've talked about your heritage and the foundation of family, work, equality, the things that made you the person you are. In terms of your strong desire, which it's obvious here, everyone can see it, to continue serving the people of Colorado and the nation now, how do you envision the future that you hope to help shape?
Oh,
I
I
know
love
it's a
that
big
question.
question. I want to hear what you have to say.
Thank you for asking it. And let me just say, somebody told me this a couple of months back, and it's stuck with me. I think that Democrats, we do a really good job of telling people the recipe instead of just telling people the the people want to see the cupcake, and Democrats do a great job of telling people the recipe. And so, and what I mean by that is we often talk about the policies that we want in all of the different issues, but I want to live in a world, and I want every Coloradan and every American to live in a world where they can thrive, where they don't have to work 3 jobs and a side hustle in order to afford housing and healthcare, where they can drop their kiddo off at universal daycare, right? And then go and know that their kiddo is going to be safe and learning and cared for and loved, right? And that if something bad happens in a moment of crisis, right? That, like, calling, going one emergency room trip or one ambulance ride doesn't put you at risk of bankruptcy or eviction, right? And so, and so to me, that means universal health care, universal child and elder care. That means paying people a living wage. It also means taxing the billionaires and ensuring that the corporations that they control aren't then going and buying our elections. And so that's the world I want to live in. And I know that in this moment, ain't nobody coming to save us but us, but we are the ones that we have been waiting for. And it's going to take everyday people like us stepping up to run, stepping up to support candidates who are proven, battle tested, fighters for those values, and that we have the ability to actually make that world a reality.
Wow. Well, you get A+ on that answer. Listen, I want to tell the audience something. Julie's in the fight for her life now. She needs your vote in the primary to go forward to the November election. She can't do it without you. Hickenlooper decided not to come before the people in the Colorado Assembly and let the people vote. So he got petitions. He paid people to go out and get petitions. Julie needs your vote to go forward. So register to vote. Vote in the primary, get involved with her campaign, get some of the signs and the buttons, and go talk to your neighbors. Host an event, come to an event, do what you can, donate. So we've put the links to all that in the chat. Our team did a ton of research on Julie, so we have a lot of resources you can look to find out more about Julie. So we're going to post all of those in the show notes when the video is published on Substack, which is usually within a half hour after the event. I want to say thank you, Julie, for coming. I knew this would be an exciting conversation, and I think we need to have another one. I don't think we got done yet, and I want to talk more about what we can do for generations, younger than us, get them out of the gig economy and help them find jobs, be productive, have the lives that they want to have. So let's look forward to our next conversation for that. What do you say?
I would be thrilled. It's such a joy to chat with you. And I just want to say thank you for the work that you do to create space for these conversations to happen. Because I'll just say, and to everyone listening in today, thank you for taking the time to get educated and informed. I know that that is a choice. And when there are so many different things vying for your attention, and when everything feels like it's on fire, that it can be easier to just say, you know what, I'm not going to engage in politics. I just can't. And the fact that, Sandi, that you create spaces where people can listen and learn, and we don't have to agree 100% of the time, but the fact that we can talk things through matters so much, because that, my friends, is going to be how we defeat these MAGA extremists once and for all, is by listening to one another, by learning from one another, and by uniting in order to improve our everyday lives. Sandi, thank you so much. I cannot wait for our next conversation.
Thank you, Julie. And everyone, check out the calendar on her campaign website. She might be coming to an event near you. I know she's coming to an event near me very soon. So I'm going to be there because I love the electric energy when Julie's there in person. Thank you for joining us on Substack Live. We'll see you on the next one. Bye.
Take care.